What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my Draftkings MMA picks for UFC Vegas 78. We have Rafael dos Anjos going against Vicente Luque.
I need all the wins, yeah. All that and all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
And we are back breaking down some DraftKings. This week we are back in the Apex breaking down some UFC Vegas 78, which I think is a pretty good card, honestly. I think they did a very good job with a lot of these matchups. I think in terms of name value, not really there, but in terms of like the fights as a whole, I think they're going to be very fun, very exciting, which is always going to make for a very good DraftKings slate. Before we get into everything, if you guys can please do me a favor, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. Tons of content coming this month and next month. We have Dana White's Contender Series, so I've been doing a breakdown for that, and I think we're in like a 17-week stretch of just UFC cards. I think we're only like 11 cards in, so the next week off is going to be like September, like late September. So just a lot of content coming. Don't forget to subscribe; it helps me out, and so you don't miss out on any other content. Other than that, be sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. I'll go over my favorite play of the week later in the show. A lot of things sticking out, by the way, this week on Underdog Fantasy as well. I'll use that promo code DFSBTN. Be on the lookout for the Prize Picks video as well, which will be dropping this week. Same promo code DFSBTN. Get yourself a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. But yeah, with all that out of the way, I say we get into it. We're going to start with some fight doesn't go to decision lines. And so they did add a brand new fight, which I kind of hate when they do this because I do all my research on like Saturday and Sunday, and when they add fights on like Monday or Tuesday, it's kind of annoying, but they added a really good fight. They added Damon Blackshear going against Jose Johnson, and I think that fight is going to be heavily favored to end inside the distance, and it is going to be one that is going to be needed to be targeted. So that one you could throw in there as well, but we're going to talk about Mike Breeden, Terrence McKinney right away. Minus 600, fight doesn't go to decision. Quite frankly, it probably should be minus 1,000 for the fight to end inside the distance. This is a Terrence McKinney fight, and this is a Terrence McKinney short notice fight. This fight is, borderline must target. So they just recently came out with the salaries for this fight, and they have Terrence McKinney sitting at 9,200, which that pretty makes him my favorite play on the slate. And they have Mike Breeden sitting at 7,000, which makes him probably one of the best pump plays on the slate, because if Terrence McKinney wins this fight, like, he has 60-second bonus upside. Like, if Terrence McKinney wins this fight, it's probably going to be in the first round. If this fight reaches the second round, Terrence McKinney's probably screwed and getting finished in the second and third by Mike Breeden. So I think this fight is borderline must target. I think it's McKinney in the first round or Breeden in the second or third. I really think McKinney should go out there and starch this guy. I think it's a great, get-right spot for McKinney. But if the fight reaches the second round, he's in big, big trouble. So phenomenal fight to target, a fight that I think, definitely finishes more often than not. Next, we have another fight that I think does finish as well. Marcus McGee going against JP Bays. Marcus McGee, kind of an ugly salary at 9,600, but, Marcus McGee has a lot of finish upside, in this fight. He has a lot of knockdown upside in this fight. JP Bays has been knocked down 8 times in the span of 3 fights, which I'm not 100% sure, but I'd be shocked if that wasn't a record. So shout out to JP Bays for getting that record there. But yeah, Marcus McGee's, big for the division. JP Bays coming back up to bantamweight. I think it's kind of a nightmare matchup for Bays. But with that said, if JP Bays can get this fight down to the mat, the one thing we have seen McGee struggle with is the ground game. McGee's one loss does come by submission. So I think JP Bays, if he does win this fight at 6,600, 1, he's going to be super low owned. Nobody's going to play him. And 2, I think it's a first round sub. So another fight that I think, although McGee is very expensive, I think he can absolutely go out there and put up just a massive score, multiple knockdowns, and a finish. But JP Bays at 6,600, I don't think he's the worst pump play in the world, but I'm more so on the McGee side myself. And next we have another great fight to target. I mean, there's some very good fights to target on this card. Khalil Roundtree, Chris Daukaus, minus 400 for the fight doesn't go. These guys are going to stand and bang. Both guys have a lot of power. Chris Daukaus is a guy that is coming down to light heavyweight, which I don't necessarily love the move for him. I mean, I really did like Daukaus at heavyweight. I thought he had a speed advantage on a lot of those bigger guys. Now he's coming back down to light heavyweight against a guy in Roundtree who hits very, very hard. I guess it all comes down to which Roundtree shows up. If the good Roundtree shows up, Roundtree probably starches him in the first round. That's kind of where I'm leaning. But in terms of a pump play, a dog shot, Chris Dawkins 7,300. If he does show up, look good. If he can get the ground game going, especially like if Chris Dawkins wrestles here and has success, like he can look like the best play on the slate. It's just we haven't really seen him do that. So I think Roundtree probably knocks him out in the first round. But another great fight to target here, regardless. Then we got Josh Fremd, Jamie Pickett, minus 210. Fight doesn't go the distance. Just one-sided action for me on this one. I mean, it's Fremd or pass. Now that we have McKinney at 9,200, we got McGee at 9,600. We have, a guy like Damon Blackshear, who's probably going to be up there as well in the 9,000s. I mean, it's hard I don't want to say it's hard to get the Josh Fremd because I really like Fremd in this matchup. I actually really like him to score decently. It's just I think there's some better plays around him this week. I don't think it's the worst fight to fade in the world just because it's a Jamie Pickett fight, and Jamie Pickett fights typically aren't the best. But we've also seen guys like Dennis Tuolua, guys like Bo Nickel, guys like Kyle Dawkins go out there and starch this guy and put up a big score. So I think Fremd does win this fight. I'm very confident he wins this fight, and he probably does score well, but I do like McKinney more, I do like McGee more, I do like Damon Blackshear more, but Fremd is absolutely in play as well. There's this 9K range this week is just stacked, and by the way, I'm not touching Jamie Pickett, and never will, from a DraftKings perspective. All right. Moving on, we have our core plays. Talked a lot about Terrence McKinney, and rightfully so. This is a matchup where he's taken just a astronomical step down in competition. Like if Terrence McKinney doesn't win this, I mean something's up, and he probably gets cut. Sadly enough. But I think he goes out there and either knocks out Mike Breeden, and I think it could be in 60 seconds, or he takes him down. Mike Breeden has no takedown defense, and he subs him shortly after. This is a Terrence McKinney get right spot. He should smash here. But if this fight reaches the second round, he's probably going to lose. But there's no way. There's no way Terrence McKinney should lose this fight. And if he does, I'll be very disappointed in him. So I'll be having a ton of Terrence McKinney because you have to have a ton of Terrence McKinney just because he has so much upside. But like I said, maybe some sprinkles on Mike Breeden just in case this fight does reach that second round. Vicente Luque. So this main event, I'm going to be pretty heavily exposed to. I think both sides are definitely in play. I'm more so on the Luque side myself. You get a little bit of price savings off of Dos Anjos, and on top of that, I think Luque does have the finishing upside. On the flip side, we'll talk about Dos Anjos, who has all the wrestling upside, the grappling upside, the control time upside. So great main event to target overall. We got Luque 8K, RDA 8.2K. I think the winner of this main event does score pretty well. And I'm going to have a decent amount of it. I'm more so on the Luque side myself, but my ownership is going to be pretty similar, slightly to Luque there. Francis Marshall, 8,500. So we didn't talk about this fight in terms of, the finish lines, but I think this is a phenomenal fight to target. He's going against Isaac Dogarian, who has literally never seen the second round, and I don't think he's been past like the halfway point of the first round, maybe once. So this is going to be an absolute car crash where Dogarian's going to have opportunities early, but if Dogarian does not finish this fight early, I do expect Marshall to take over and probably get a finish himself. So phenomenal fight to target. I do lean towards Marshall weathering that early storm and getting a finish in the second and third, but we'll talk about Dogarian, who I think is going to be one of the most popular dogs on the slate this week. And then Marcus McGee, we touched on him. I mean, just a great matchup. The price, it is what it is, but if he can go out there and knock down JP a couple times, get a late first round finish, I mean, this guy can put up a massive score. So I'm not going to let the price really scare me away. I think McGee's very much in play this week, even though he's, at a crazy price tag just because of the knockdown upside, the finish upside. I'd be shocked if this one went the full 15. McGee's never been the full 15. JP's been the full 15 once, and in that fight, he got knocked down like 5 times by Montel Jackson. So like me some McGee here in this spot. Moving on to our GPP plays here, our tournament plays. We got Josh Fremd at 9,400. Talked about him a little bit, not in love with it, but I think he's safe. I think he's a guy that he does have upside, right? He does have upside. We've seen Jamie Pickett get finished in his last 3 losses, twice in the first round, once in the second by Dennis Tuolua. I mean, if Dennis Tuolua's finishing you, I mean, there's some problems, right? Josh Fremd, he's just going to be dangerous where the fight goes. Josh Fremd can get a submission. He can get a knockout. Like I said, I like McKinney a tad more. I like McGee a tad more. And I like Blackshear a tad more, which we don't know Blackshear's price tag yet. I'm expecting him to be 93 or 9,500. But yeah, I mean, I think Fremd is very much in play this week. Khalil Roundtree, 8,900. We talked about him a little bit. I think if he shows up, he probably starts his Dawkins in the very first round. Don't know if he has like a 60-second bonus, nothing like that. But I think, Dawkins, he's been finished in, I believe, all of his losses. The majority of those in round one. Dawkins coming down to weight class. I don't think that's going to help his chin here. It's not, he's not getting hit by big heavyweights anymore, and that's great. But, Khalil Roundtree is one of the hardest hitters in the light heavyweight division. So I think Roundtree is very live for a finish in this matchup. And then RDA, touched on him a little bit in this main event. I mean, I think RDA, if he wins this fight, you're going to get a pretty big score. I mean, RDA can put up a big DraftKings score here just with his style. High volume on the feet, really good wrestling, really good grappling. I do worry about him in terms of the size in this matchup. I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to take down and hold down a much bigger, Vicente Luque. I do like lightweight RDA much better than welterweight RDA, just because he does tend to struggle with these bigger guys at times. But if it turns out RDA can take this fight down to the mat, can control this fight, he's going to put up a massive score at 8.2K. So I think RDA is very much in play. And if he does win this fight, I think he puts up probably one of the biggest scores on the card with wrestling across 5 rounds. Jacqueline Amarim, man, like I said, this 9K range is stacked. We got Amarim as well, who Amarim is a strawweight. Her round prop is like plus 110. I mean, you'll never see anything like that. Even like Tatiana Suarez, I don't even think her first round prop last week was plus 110. Jacqueline Amarim, all of her wins come in the first round. So if she wins this fight, I think it's in the first round. Like if she gets in the second round, I actually worry about her winning at all. So kind of like a Terrence McKinney, right? Like if this fight gets to the second, she probably loses. So Amarim, she is a target that I want to get to this week. I think she probably submits Ruiz and probably doesn't in the first 5 minutes. And if she does that, she's going to put up one of the biggest scores on the slate. And what I like about Amarim, she's going to be lower owned than McKinney, 100%. She's going to be lower owned probably than McGee. She's probably going to be lower owned than even Josh Fremd, than Roundtree. I think she's going to be one of the lower owned fighters up in this 9K range. I think Dawodu and Amarim are going to be two of the lower owned fighters up in this stacked 9K range. So I think Amarim is very much in play. First round upside, and I'm going to have a decent amount of her there. All right, let's get into the underdog play of the week. Last week had Sandhagen higher than 0.5 finishes, just very weird, frustrating fight, and he almost even did finish Font in the 5th round, so that did not come through. We'll see if we can hit this one. I'm going with the Yasmin Lucindo lower than 2 takedowns. So for me, if I'm Yasmin Lucindo, I'm not going for any takedowns at all. I mean, if I'm Yasmin Lucindo, I'm treating the ground as lava against Polyana Viana, who her whole game is, armbar from guard, right? She's very dangerous off her back. So it wouldn't make sense for me to go out there and get any takedowns whatsoever. So maybe Lucindo does go for takedowns. Maybe she does get them. But if she even goes for takedowns, I can see Viana just pulling guard, and those shouldn't count as takedowns. So in a perfect world, I would like to see Lucindo get 0 takedowns here. But maybe she does go for a takedown or 2. But even if she gets 1 takedown, like that's the round, because Viana's staying there until the fight either finishes or she's getting stood up or the round's over, right? So the only way this probably does not hit if she gets like a takedown in each round, which I guess that's the one thing. But I think this lower should hit. I don't think she should go for any takedowns here. So I guess it all comes down to the game plan. But that's what I'm going with. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of things that stick out this week on Underdog Fantasy. I would seriously check it out. I'll be getting out some plays on my DFS article as well, so be sure to check that out. But yeah, use promo code DFSBTN, get yourself a 100% deposit bonus up to $100 for Underdog Fantasy there. All right, let's get into the live dogs. We got Polyana Viana, 7,500. Just touched on the fight a little bit. She's a finisher. She's a finisher at strawweight, a 100% finish rate. I've never seen anything like it. She is a minute loser. She'll never win a decision, and that's why she is, very much in play. From a DraftKings perspective. Like if she wins this fight, it's probably a first round armbar from guard. And I have some interest in it. So, do I think she wins this fight? Honestly, I mean, I think she probably loses a decision, but she's going to have so many opportunities. Like if this fight hits the mat, she's going to have so many opportunities. Like Lucindo has been subbed twice or maybe 3 times in her career. Those sub losses did come, a long time ago, but still, Viana is no joke if the fight hits the mat, and I have a feeling it will. So I don't mind some Viana, 7,500. Isaac Dalgarian, A guy that has a 100% finish rate, a guy where all of his wins come in the first round, not only in his pro career, in his amateur career as well. This guy's never seen a second or third. A Dogarian fights like a madman. Dogarian fights like Terrence McKinney. He's going for takedowns right away, and he's trying to get on top and smash your face in or get the sub. Dogarian's very, very dangerous early on. He's a guy that has upside. Does he start Francis Marshall here? I'm not so sure. But if he does, he's going to put up a lot of DraftKings points here. So you got to have some Dogarian. I think he's going to be one of the more popular dogs on the slate as well. We touched on Luque as a dog. AJ Dobson, I think, is a live dog. I mean, this is a guy in Dobson where I think he's kind of finish reliant in this matchup. If this fight goes the distance, I kind of lean towards Tafon doing the better work across 15. But Dobson has power in Tafon and Chukwi. I do question the durability about him. So if I'm playing Dobson here, which I will play some, I'm looking for a finish in this matchup. If he can finish Tafon, I think he puts up a big score. If not, this fight obviously goes 15, and he probably loses a decision this one. So I don't mind some Dobson for some potential finish upside against Tafon, who's been knocked out in his last two. And then Juliana Miller at 7,900. Kind of a dart throw here. I think people are very low on Miller, but I'm just not impressed with Luana Santos. I think this line probably should be flipped. I think it should be Juliana Miller as the favorite. She's much more proven. She has a really good ground game and, really good jiu-jitsu, and I think that might be all it takes here against Luana Santos, who I've seen, give up her back on multiple occasions, get controlled a lot on the ground, and I think this fight is primarily going to play out on the mat. So, I think Juliana Miller should be able to go out there and get either a decision win or a submission win, but it's ugly, it's greasy, but she'll be pretty low owned, so I don't mind some shots. Pump plays, Chris Daukaus, and by the way, he looks nothing like that anymore. He is coming down to light heavyweight, but yeah, I mean, it all comes down to, which Roundtree shows up. If the Roundtree that shows up against Prochnio shows up, I mean, Daukaus rolls, makes it look easy, probably finishes Roundtree in this matchup. If Daukaus wrestles and has success wrestling, he probably breaks the slate. I don't know if that's the case, but maybe he coming down to light heavyweight, he does show an interest in terms of getting the fight down to the mat. He's a black belt for what it's worth. Roundtree has struggled on the mat in the past. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of avenues where Daukaus could potentially go out here and be a good play at 7,300 as far as a pump play goes. So, yeah, I don't mind some Daukaus here. Other pump plays, we talked about Jose Johnson. We don't have the salary yet for Jose Johnson. I'm assuming he's going to be very low priced here. And then JP Bays, if you're looking for somebody with first round submission upside, I think it's first round sub or bust for JP Bays. And outside of that, not a ton sticking out down low this week. I think a lot of these bigger favorites up top roll. Fades, I'll give to Hakeem Dawodu. 9,000. I actually think Hakeem, wins this fight and potentially even finishes this fight, but I think if he does finish this fight at all, it's going to come late. Cub Swanson, I think he is towards the end of his career. He doesn't take shots well. He looks weak to the body at this point, weak to the legs. I think that Dawodu kind of puts it on him and gets him out of there late. Dawadu's not going to wrestle. And like I said, I don't think he has first or second finish round upside. I think if it's a finish, it's probably in the third. And we have guys and girls that can go out there and finish in the first. Amareem, McKinney, so on and so forth. So pretty easy fade here for me. And then Martin Budai, 8,800. I mean, it's self-explanatory. I mean, you don't get a ton of points for pushing people against the cage, and he's going to do that for 15 minutes. So, yeah, pretty fine with fading both these guys with all the great options we talked about up top. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Solid DraftKings card. Like, I'm really looking forward to this card from a DraftKings perspective, Underdog perspective, Prize Picks perspective. A lot sticking out from a fantasy perspective this week. Not so much from a betting perspective. So I think I'm gonna get most of my action in on the DraftKings, on the Prize Picks, on the Underdog this week. Because yeah, honestly, a lot is sticking out. If you guys could do me a favor, like the video on your way out, subscribe to the channel, check out Underdog Fantasy, use that promo code DFSBTN. Check out DFSbythenumbers.com if you want extra content or if you want to support me more. There you'll find the stats you see on the Friday, Saturday shows, the targets, projections, rankings, ownership projections, the optimizer, the articles, and just a ton of content on DFSbythenumbers.com. Best of luck for UFC Vegas 78. We'll talk to you guys very soon. See you later.